Hello! Hello, hello, hello. Hey! Hey, Uli, how you doing? Uli, you should be excited. And everyone that's just jumping in, welcome in. I'm going to jump right into it. We have some exciting news. The Firaxis Feature Workshop, if you guys have not heard, is a 3-round beta program that is being offered by Firaxis to play the new version of Civ, the big changes they're adding to Civ 7. I was able to play through round 1. I was able to give Firaxis direct feedback, and of course re-invited for round 2. But they've actually, to my surprise, opened up the the accessibility of the workshop. They thought it went really, really well the first round. There was a lot of really big changes that I thought were pretty groundbreaking for Civ 7. And I think the vast majority of it felt really, really, really good. So if anyone in the stream wants to be part as a play tester, that means playing the beta as well as actually filling out the surveys and giving feedback, let me know. I have at least one Steam key left, and I can always get more for those that want to participate. But overall, I'm going to start jumping into the patch notes that they gave us. I am making a specific video about a couple of my favorite parts about this, but I did want to jump on because like right now is the embargo lift, and I want to show people the Uli, and those that are playing, this is the patch notes that are dropping for right before the we can actually play tomorrow. And yeah, so here we are at Firaxis Feature Workshop, Civ 7. So I haven't really made any content specifically about the first round of the workshop. So I'm going to try to give people a little bit of context and fill people in as we can. Of course, a lot of this document is based off of the patch updates from the previous version. But if you've been following anything about on the Civilization channels, you guys know that there's big changes coming. Right, we have things like being able to play the one Civ through all 3 ages. So that means in America from antiquity all the way through modernity, or if you want to play as the immortal Rome that continues, or you can mix and match. You can play as the Mississippians in antiquity, transition into the Shawnee in exploration, and then continue as the Shawnee as a fully independent Shawnee modern nation. Which I think is incredibly cool. So that, as well as the legacy pass that they have completely reworked. The legacy paths, as in the, build 7 wonders in antiquity, get 10 codices, the treasure fleets, the convert settlement or conquer cities in distant lands only in exploration, right? All of those types of legacy paths are being replaced with what are called triumphs. And I'll say right now, like, way more flexible, really, really fun, offers a lot of different variability. Of course, I can't, like, I'm struggling to figure out how much to nitpick the first round without playing the second round. Firaxis have been fantastic. I literally wrote like 12 pages about my feelings about the first, literally just continuous civs. I didn't even get to the victories part. And they went through and read it all. And I can tell from round 2, like, some of the things that I recommended were definitely heard. Because I was trying to compile a lot of information from a lot of people that were in the Discord. And not necessarily that they have to apply exactly what I said, but I can see little instances where they're like, okay, he's feeling the same feeling as these players, and I might be missing something here or there, but we'll see. It feels like round 2 is feeling even better than round 3, but there's a whole cultural, like, a victory through dominance system, which essentially means you, instead of playing through the entire game and then hitting a final capstone project, which basically feels like Civ 6 Science Victory, but for all victory conditions. Now all victory conditions are quote-unquote speed runnable, or they operate a lot more like Civ 6's Culture Victory, where if you bank your tourism high enough early on in the game, you'll win, period. So that happens for military, cultural, and economic victories. Those, of course, scale. The threshold is really, really high early on, though. So technically you can win the first turn of Exploration Age. But that's only if you're, like, completely snowballed out of control, like 9 times the score of everyone else. I have a lot of thoughts about how this is implemented, or at least how it's worded, and I'll get into all that later. But basically, there's ways to speedrun through the game. That threshold decreases as the game goes on, so that a winner is eventually crowned. But there's a whole bunch of things in here, and then as well as triumphs. These are all things we're going to get into. This, of course, is a video that's been public for a while, so I'm just going to jump right into the patch notes here. So, of course, they start off by saying, like, thank you to everyone that's been participating. Build is work in progress, so As you know, UI things are not finalized. Specifically, I want to point out things like this Triumph screen does look pretty good, but things like the score here, I think you definitely use a little bit of work cleaning up. And I've seen a couple of screenshots that look really cool. So basically, you can lead one civilization through all the tests of time. That's fantastic. There's a lot of feelings I had about this because the ability to play one civ through all 3 ages essentially makes it so that now your civ's unique ability is an ageless effect, which is great. Like, you want to play Inca through all 3 ages because you want to mess with mountains all 3 ages. You want to play as Rome, I guess for a lot of different reasons, but I guess their unique ability is just culture on districts, right? Which isn't necessarily like their defining characteristic. What makes them an asymmetric playstyle civ, right? So what you want to do is you want to try to take a lot of the passive bonuses and abilities, or different, whether it's from a unique unit or from a unique infrastructure or something, but a lot of these need to get wrapped up into the actual civ's main ability. And that is something I said very, very specifically, and I do see right here, where was it actually? I should have highlighted, they mention, oh man, I really should have highlighted these. They said a lot of the passive bonuses. So like when you're in a civ's unique civic tree and you get a passive bonus to like, hey, legions are now stronger, or this or that, or yada, yada, yada. A lot of those are being wrapped into the actual civ bonus or being turned into a tradition, which is something good to see. They're going to change the game a lot. We watched the first 10 minutes. Willie, I don't know. I basically was just giving context for the first 10 minutes, so you're free. You're probably good to just kind of just jump in. I haven't really got into the meat of anything too much yet. Definitely should have highlighted some things here. Okay, so yeah, for players joining for the first time in round 2, one of the headline systems we're continuing to workshop is the ability to lead a single civ through all 3 ages. You carry the fantasy of playing into each game, picking a civ they love, and guiding from the ancient world all the way to modern. Definitely still a core part of Civ, obviously with Civ transitions and transitioning from different civs. It is a good mechanic. It is something that is foundational to Civ 7. However, these don't have to be mutually exclusive. Just because you have America in modern era doesn't mean America doesn't work as an antiquity civ. There's different abilities you can do. Like, for instance, that's really easy to adapt. America's unique civ ability is literally getting gold every time they improve a resource. They're a very resource economic heavy civilization. And if you're familiar in Civ 7, they get 100 gold every time they improve a resource. Well, the easiest way to adapt that was basically just make it so it scales per age. So America would just make 50 gold every time they improved a resource in antiquity, and then 100 gold in exploration, and they actually buffed it so it was 150 in modern. So that you have there's ways to make like the Civ bonus itself work through all 3 ages. Inca, you can work mountains in antiquity. Do they have the exact same yield as they did in exploration? No, they're just scaled down a little bit. That's fine. There's a lot of civs that are very easy to adapt, and there's a lot of civs that are very hard to adapt. I know specifically talking about the Abbasids. The Abbasids they have a ability that gives you gold for every. You get gold whenever you make a specialist for the amount of rural population you have. They reworked it. Now you just get gold every time you get a growth event, rural and urban specialists, tile improvements or specialists. So it just like quite little tweaks here and there, where the foundational portion of making a civ play through all ages feels very natural, very, very natural, and is a really big deal and is really awesome. There's also something to be said. The very first thing you need to mention, and which is something that I applauded them, is like, dude, Civ launched with 30 civs in the game. That is more than 31, actually. That is more than any other previous Civ title, period. In terms of the amount of history you need to do, the amount of music you gotta write, the amount of abilities you have to balance, the amount of everything. was an absurd amount of work from a gameplay, game design point of view. But when a player jumps into the game and they jump into Antiquity and they only had a choice of 10 civs, you felt kind of cheated. Like they talk about 30 civilizations, but you can actually only play 10 at a time. So effectively it was 10 civilizations. Now there's the argument that it's like, yeah, no, but you also have like 18 different leaders. So there's mixed mass potential, but it still felt, most players still felt a little bit gypped. Even with 3 DLC packs, there's only 15 civs per era. Once you open up the ability to play multiple civs, or any civ in any age, you now all of a sudden, you don't have 15, you have like 46 different civilizations to choose from. So it massively exploded the amount of content that is available to the game as a player. And that's not even considering mix and match and different combinations, like I was just talking about with like the like playing Mississippians into Shawnee, into modern Shawnee, or America all the way through, or this or that. There's a bunch of different things you can do. You wonder how many new players that started in Civ 7 will see the update and say America in Antiquity era is absurd and unrealistic? That'd be pretty funny. That'd be really funny. I actually had a very detailed write-up, and I should turn it into a video. I literally wrote an essay about what immersion is for players. Because you hear a lot of people argue about what's immersive in Civ 7, what isn't. Like, is it historical accuracy? Is it the gameplay mechanics? Is it this? Is it that? Is it like... But the answer is like, it's all of those, but it's none of those, because immersion is anything that gets you engrossed into a game, makes you believe the world is believable, at least to the context of the game. Like we can jump into Civ 6 and see America in Antiquity and be like, oh, that's funny, but you forget it immediately because you're like, all right, given the context of the game, does this make sense? Yeah. The biggest thing for a lot of players and for me personally is I didn't get upset when I saw America leading Greece because I figured out the context as to why America leads Greece. America, or Benjamin Franklin, for instance, led Greece because Benjamin Franklin was one of the the founding fathers of America and took a ton of inspiration from the democracy of Greece and the Republic of Rome. So yeah, like if Abe was leading any Antiquity Civ, I would put them with those two. Anytime you can find some type of historical context, it helps with immersion, and something that it helps with me specifically as a player. Now, when you saw Himiko leading the Mississippians, and there's no explanation other than she just doesn't have a civ, it's a technical limitation. Or you saw Napoleon, or even worse, you saw Augustus leading... I don't know, anyone, Axum. And you're like, why is he leading Axum? Oh, well, you see, Catherine's in the game and she took Rome. And so she slot ordered him. And then Egypt's in the game, and so he didn't get to Egypt. And someone took Carthage already. And then it's like, all right, so the only reason why Augustus is leading Axum in this game is because he got 4th slot ordered on all of his preferred options. And that is a technical limitation that creates that explanation and is not satisfying and is immersion breaking for players that like me, where it's like, no. Like I'm all for the what if scenarios, but if there's no reason to why the what if is happening, that's what breaks my immersion. I had a really long write-up for that. I know I've heard a lot of creators talk about immersion and not understanding, but like that's what it is. Seems like a lot of players say something breaks immersion. You don't like a part of the game. There is definitely a subset of players that are going to either be trolls or just complain about everything. Period. End of story. But I feel like the most productive way to look at immersion is like, is there a reason something is happening? Like Augustus going from Rome and then transitioning into the Inca is something that doesn't make sense on the surface. But if you think about Augustus and Rome, and then selling towards a bunch of mountain ranges, and you think about, oh, this is now a what-if situation, where what if instead of Rome expanding outward, or even collapsing, they retreated, and they expanded up up the Alps and became a mountain-based civilization similar to the Inca. Not that they have to be Inca, South American Inca, but similar to the Inca, with foundations of Roman architecture and all that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff I love. And we'll talk about syncretism and a bunch of things, and how that applies here in a bit. There's a conspiracy that Japan reached New World in ancient times. That's interesting. If any Civ did, probably. Also, the Polynesians did. I mean, they made it all the way to Eastern Island, which is very far from South America, but the Polynesians made it everywhere. I know there's a bunch of, there's new theories about Native Americans making it to North America before the Ice Age and before the land bridge, based off of boats and different archaeological finds that are way older than the Ice Age. And there's a whole thing that's a whole bucket to start talking to. But anyways, just to say, continuous civs felt very, very natural to load up a game, and you're playing as Benjamin Franklin leading America in antiquity, and you meet Augustus, who's leading Rome, and you meet Inca, led by Pachacuti, and you meet Catherine, who's leading Russia. It felt very natural. Obviously, I'm used to other Civ games, but the amount of flexibility provided by having so many civilizations to choose from immediately destroys the limitation of Civs getting slot ordered by each other, or leaders slot ordering each other for different Civs. And I thought it was really, really good. And something to note, very specifically, it completely opens up the game. Now, how you balance out of age Civs between and apex Civs, as they call them, whole other can of worms that we can talk about. But so when you play outside your window, we don't just strip things away and call it a day. If you're playing as Rome and you move into exploration age, do you keep your legions? And conversely, if you're America, do you get all of your unique Marines or I forget what the unit is about it. I think it's a Marine, right? There's the unique unit needs to be defined within a specific age, but then what about their infrastructure? And there's a huge conversation about that. But they go through things pretty much bit by bit. So civics, each age includes a Civ-specific civic node that reinforces your tradition, while the rest of your progression pulls from the broader attribute tracks like cultural, economic. So this is something that was actually really, really cool. And something everything we're talking about, you're going to see in action during a live stream tomorrow when the actual beta opens. Right now, we're just going through patch notes. But basically, if you have a Civ and you have, of course, your Civ bonus, but you have a unique civic tree. Every Civ in their Apex days has a whole unique civic tree, which gives them tradition cards, gives them passive bonuses, gives them access to a wonder, unique infrastructure, all of those bonuses, right? If you are now out of Apex, what do you do with your culture tree? And this is actually something that I thought was really, really incredible, was that they actually went in and they made more bonuses for Civ. So the very first Civ I played was Inca. And Inca was a fantastic example because I was like, all right, exploration era Civ, play them in antiquity, see what happens. And the civic tree had one civic. The unique civic tree, there was one special civic. And you know what it did? It was another bonus towards mountains, and it felt amazing. It basically gave golden production to mountain tiles. And because their Civ's ability lets you work mountain tiles for a little bit of a yield, but it really doesn't come online until you hit a lot of those more bonuses later on in exploration. So this is a little foundation. It was called a Incan foundation. I literally felt like I was a proto-ancestor, Incan civilization that was probably based around the Andes as well, but was able to work mountains early. And I thought that was freaking fantastic. That also means that when you play a Civ through all three ages, you unlock more traditions than if you were just Civ switching every time. So if you were playing the Mississippians and you had this Mississippian traditions, and then you switch to Inca, you keep your Mississippian traditions, and then you get your new Incan traditions, but you wouldn't have access as if you were playing Inca from the very beginning. So there was actually something to be said about playing Inca all the way through, where you actually had even stronger mountain tiles if you went Inca instead of something else into Inca, which I thought was fantastic. And it's a bunch of bonuses like that where you got to figure out how to power up out of age civs, and I think that's really cool. But what they're saying here is like, what do you do with the rest of the civic tree? They have one tradition or one civic that they've designed out of a civ's age. Obviously, it's gonna be a lot of work to make unique civic trees for all 3 ages, for civs, for ages that they're not really applied to, but you can at least get one. And then they made 2 more, and that was based off of the civ's attributes. So every civ that has a cultural attribute had bonuses to play the cultural game better. So say like Egypt is antiquity. So for example, antiquity Inca were able to have economic bonuses that were specific to antiquity. Some of the things I remember, so that they got basically more gold on resources, or it's a very generic ability because it's copied between every civ that has that attribute, which is I think a smart way to populate a lot of different content but also makes the civ feel like, oh, this is a economic civ. I should play an economic game with them. I have more bonuses to economy, right? Like if you're playing a cultural leader in Exploration Age, you actually get additional religious beliefs. Like there's literally a bonus in the civic, in the cultural attribute unique civic tree that gave you like another religious belief. Like so if you hit theology, of course, you get your extra belief. If you spread your religion a bunch, you get an extra belief. But also if you just hit that civic, that one civic, you got your extra belief. You could only have up to like, the 3. You couldn't have like 4 beliefs or anything crazy. But like it was a really, really interesting way to do it. It's gonna be a while before all this comes out. They are aiming for spring, summer. They did not say anything specific, but they are currently on round 2 of 3 rounds of workshop. Let me see if I can find a specific. I don't think they have something for this specifically. This is one reason why I almost just did this later tomorrow. There's gonna be a lot more details about this kind of stuff later tomorrow, but. So basically, every out of age civ has another unique civic tree that is essentially based from one civic that is their own, a civic that is from each of their attributes, as well as masteries to go with those, and then they have a test of valor, which is basically unique. It's actually not even like a narrative event. It is it says unique narrative event. Introduces a temporary hardship that allows you to trade real pressure in exchange for a permanent legacy reward. So basically, it's a challenge you must complete as an out-of-age civ in order to unlock another tradition that you wouldn't have access to. This tradition is a very powerful tradition. You actually have to have some type of penalty in order to unlock it. I thought some of them were really good. I thought some of them weren't as good. I think there's a lot to talk about when it came to specific, but it basically added a lot of character to playing your unique civilization out of their own age. I believe how it worked previously, how you unlocked it is something that they've actually already reworked because a lot of players hated it, but we'll get into that in a second. Excuse me. And then there's also an ability called Syncretism, which, remember, if you're an out-of-age civ and you don't have access to unique units, while every other civ in the game has a unique unit or unique infrastructure, this is a way for you to borrow units and infrastructure from other civilizations. I had a lot of feelings about Syncretism, and basically, I love the ability because I already like civ switching. Basically, it allowed you to play as, instead of being America, and you, or being Ben Franklin, and you're playing as Spain in Exploration Age, and then transitioning into America, where you're just not even America. You were Spain and then you're America. Instead, what you got the ability to do is where you played as America in the Exploration Age, but because you don't have any unique units or unique infrastructure, you got to borrow those one of them, not both, not unit and infrastructure. You had to pick one. So I got to borrow the Casa de Contrataciones and built a little bit of a Spanish architecture inside of my American infrastructure, inside of my American empire. And I thought that felt really cool because I felt like I was playing America with a touch of Spanish influence. Like I was Florida or, New Spain, the western end, California. Like I felt like I was playing a very California end of American history, which I thought was really, really cool. I also argued very heavily that the players that don't like Civ switching would not like syncretism in the way it was developed. And I laid out a lot of reasons why, and I could probably make a whole video on just that specifically. They've already reworked a little bit about how it works, and I'm excited to see what it is. My biggest issue was literally just how it was presented, and basically, you had your unique civic. That was your foundational civic. That was basically like if you're Inca, you got to get in a bonus that was Inca. And then underneath it was a mastery. When you mastered your Incan foundation, you unlocked syncretism, which means you got literally anything that wasn't Inca. Like you could pick up burning arrows, you could pick up the Mayan unique quarter, and it was limited to the civilizations that you have unlocked. But then I argued that it's redundant because you just decided not to play these civs, and then you get offered by this. I think there's a lot I could talk about syncretism. I think it's a really cool mechanic. It allows players to get a bonus that they are lacking, especially unique units, because there's so much stuff happening in the game in terms of trying to make sure that every civ has a unique unit. I thought a lot of parts of it were redundant. Sometimes it was too powerful and too flexible. Like you could literally sit like on one turn and not having picked up anything, and the moment someone declares war on you, you could sink one turn into that, upgrade all of your units into burning arrows, and then be fine. And I gave them very direct examples about what would have happened in Civ if I was next to Ursa Ryan and he picked Bulgaria, and I was forced, because of his pick, to make the decision then and there to play Mongolia to defend myself. But what if instead I decided to play as Egypt through like Exploration Age, and then waited to see if he was to declare war on me or not? And then if he renewed his alliance, I would pick up infrastructure that helped me build wonders and stuff. Or if he did look like he was going to attack me, wait till he declared war, right? But had a bunch of like literally just like archers and stuff ready, and then the second he declared war, like pick up Keshigs, and all of a sudden all the archers like transition into Keshigs, and then it completely upends the way the war was going. There's a lot of things that I like about syncretism. I'm excited to see what they changed. Specifically, they said they changed that a little bit, or at least they made it so it wasn't like a Civ mastery. We'll see what it looks like. There's a lot of I thought there was. Syncretism is the thing I felt the most strongly about, because there's a lot of instances where it was too flexible, to the point where like they're giving you the ability to have a unique infrastructure or unit because you don't have anything. So civs felt weak, but I argue the reason they felt weak was more because of the civ ability not carrying through. I just gotta make a whole video about this. I have a whole write-up. I literally could transition into a video. I just want to, before I do that, like see what actual adjustments that they made. And now that everything is public, now I can actually make that a video. You probably look this up yourself, but do you know if you can sign up for the workshop, maybe round 3? Matthew, yes. I currently have keys. Anyone that's watching right now, if you are in my Discord, go to my Discord. If you're on YouTube, there's a link in the description. If you're on Twitch, there should be a little link right here. And the workshop is open to pretty much anyone that wants to be a part of it. As a content creator, everyone in the Discord got 3 free keys to share with our friends. As a content creator, I can ask them for more. If you guys are interested, please join the Discord, ping me. I request 2 things if you want to be part of the workshop. One is that you play the game. You have 1 week to play it. So it opens up tomorrow, and you get to play. So you get to play it from Thursday to Thursday. And there is an exit survey. Please, the whole point of this is to give them feedback. Please do the exit survey. There's also a Discord where you can do a bunch of feedback specific. There's so many different places you can communicate with them. It's really, really cool. But yeah, as a content creator specifically, we have a separate channel with them, which is great. We can give them very direct feedback. They're reading the documents and write-ups. Like literally, I was like, I'm writing way too much, and then they said they loved it. How much of my feedback is going to be directly adapted? Very, very questionable. Obviously, I have some game design background in terms of a couple of courses, and I'm a content creator, and I've been gaming, and I'm a part of the community. I'm trying to focus on the communication end of what do players feel about the game, and using the amount of vocabulary that I have in terms of how to communicate that to the developers in a way that is productive. So yeah, if you want to be part of the workshop, let me know. I can get you invited to the Discord and a Steam key, and I request that you do the player survey, you participate in some conversations in the Discord, but of course, be productive. This is it's been incredibly positive in terms of how productive conversations have been. Things have been very critical, but in a very productive avenue, which is fantastic. A lot of players even came up with their own solutions to issues, and that's something that I focused on doing, was that if I had a problem with something, I tried to figure out a solution, or at least a direction that I thought felt better, and from there they can either take that idea or take the threads of what I'm pulling at, if they're also thinking about something I'm not thinking about, and then adjust from there. So in the Discord, but yeah, no, I'm psyched. I am a creator that's been in Civ a long time. Feeling the communication is going a little bit more 2 directions as opposed to just 1 direction is really cool, though. Productive criticism on the internet, gasp. That's why the first round was private. The first round was NDA. I am very surprised round 2 is going to be this public already. But a lot of changes are feeling like they're going in the right direction. There's a lot of opinions I have about specific things. Mostly nitpicks, but in general, I think a lot of things are going in the right direction. Syncretism is probably the biggest thing I had the most emotions about, and I actually discovered a way and wrote up an entire thing, not just from my opinions, but from a lot of opinions in the Discord, and not just my ideas, but borrowing some ideas from other players in the Discord, about making syncretism work. And the reason why I didn't like it was because it was just a civic mastery. It was too gamey. It was redundant. And it felt counterintuitive to what it was trying to do. I proposed a solution where, and it's specifically because like players that don't like civ switching already are already at a point where they don't like the mix and mash because they don't see the reason that things are mix and matching. So, for instance, if someone doesn't know why Spain is being led by Benjamin Franklin, or maybe like, hey, like, I don't understand why, I'm playing as Genghis Khan, but I'm leading like Chola or something random, right? Like I pointed out, like if Abraham Lincoln is leading Greece, you just got the choice to lead Greece or Rome, right? But you said, no, I want to play as America. All right. And then a couple turns later, they ask, all right, you didn't want to play as Greece, but do you want hoplites? And you're like, all right, you just asked me if I want to play Greece. I said no. You're asking again, do I want to play with Greek units? And I'm like, but then they also don't see why. I had kind of designed another solution where you can get access to unique infrastructure or units, but it's based off of narrative events specifically. Like if you have supported research agreements with an ally, and like Assyria, and you completed a supported research agreement. At the completion of that, maybe Assyria wants to share their own technologies with you, and you could either pick up their unique unit or pick up their unique infrastructure. Or you have a trade route that's gone, or mutual trade routes between two civilizations, and that kind of creates the bleeding of infrastructure and cultures between different civilizations, where you could pick up a unique ability or unit from a specific action that you had to do and work into. That might be one way to make syncretism work, because what you're doing is you're creating a reason, in-game reason as to why these things are happening, as opposed to just saying strategic choice. So there's definitely a lot of things to think about when it comes to syncretism. This is why we wanted to go through the patch notes. I haven't really talked at length about my full opinions about the round one, because it was still under NDA, where it's completely open from NDA now. So we can be very, very, I can talk a lot about it, and I'm trying to make some specific videos. There's specifically a couple of mechanics right at the very end of these patch notes that I want to make specific videos on, because there's really big adjustments coming to the game. And syncretism, and all this continuous civ stuff is very much in flux still, very much changing. The blue hair, the blue shirt, yeah. I'm enjoying the blue still. It has been blue for 2 months. It is still this blue. Could you imagine? Dude, I dyed this 2 months ago. It's still this blue. My roots are growing way faster than it's fading, and it's so funny. Also, my hair is absurdly long. It's driving me crazy. So I hope you guys are enjoying it. So there's also the... they also had a bunch of names. They used to call the civs that are outside of their apex, right? America's apex in modern. But antiquity, they were called anachronistic, which is a big vocabulary word that most players were like, what is that? It means out of time. So they're outside of their apex. As someone with a stutter, it was really hard for me to say. They're changing the terminology to time tested. I think this is a worse term, to be honest. I think you call them apex and non-apex. Just call them apex civs when they're in their apex, and call them non-apex when they're outside of it. But that's again a nitpick, and something I put in my feedback is like this is great. I don't like the term. You got your hair, but it was always so hot, so you gotta get a haircut. So I like doing the hair dyeing in the winter when my hair is long and can show it off. In the summer, I do a lot of running in the heat, so I cut it. I cut it very short. I go from long hair to short hair to long hair to short hair, like all the time. Usually on a seasonal basis. So the burden of time, again, this is the narrative event that you had to do in order to unlock a unique, powerful tradition that you only receive one if you play your civ out of Apex, and you completed the burden of time, or the test of valor is what they're calling it now. Essentially, this is a unique tradition that you plug in. Oh, this is a big thing. Traditions and policy cards are now separated. So it's very clear what are traditions and what are policies, because they're in completely different columns, and you can put traditions in your tradition slots. You can put policies in your policy slots. You can put policies in tradition slots, but you can't put traditions in policy slots. Like they're very specifically separated now, which is a good change. It clears up some confusion. Also some abilities with different civs. There's some things to talk about with that. But basically, this is a debuff that you have to plug in it says now 20 turns. This is a massive penalty now. It used to have no bonus. Now it's all settlements receive -1 or -2 to every yield, and all units receive -2 combat strength. You plug this in for 20 turns, and then you unlock a policy card unique. So like for America, 20 turns. and you get a policy that allows you a unique tradition. Remember, you keep this throughout the entire game. But +3 culture and happiness in cities with all resource slots filled. +1 culture and happiness in towns with all the resource slots filled. So I think this is a bad example because I think America had the weakest tradition out of all of them. Some of the other civs, it was like very, very strong. This one is completely contingent on you having your resource slots filled. And when you're constantly building up markets and different buildings and things like that, you're constantly losing the bonus. Like, so you actively wanted to avoid your economic buildings. I think this card needs to change specifically. But I think the idea in general was good. Before, it was like you had to have the card in for like 3 celebrations with a triggering of 3 celebrations. So I was slotting it in and out and in and out and trying to like min max that. And they just made it's 20 turns now. I think that's a good change. And I think this is an interesting choice because like, do you run it early where it's gonna be a smaller modifier, but like it's a snowball game, like small modifiers are big. So like, do you run this test of valor early to get it over with so you can get access to your good card? Or do you try to run your policies until you have enough tradition slots, then you can finally slot it in and then get access to the card? I think there's a bunch of, I think there's a lot to be said there in terms of where that's going. Anachronistic is the perfect word, though maybe I'm biased because you're into retrofuturistic science fiction. I think it was the most accurate word to use. Historically. Like from a historical perspective or from high vocabulary or from, not even high vocabulary. A lot of players just didn't like the word. I think anachronistic is better than time-tested civs. Because like, all right, I'm playing American Antiquity. I'm now a time-tested civ. No, I just started. I haven't tested anything. I think anachronistic was better. I was literally just saying non-apex in my document the entire time because I couldn't spell the dang word. So 20 consecutive turns. Again, this is something I'm going to have to play and see how it feels. A lot of players just avoided doing the test of the burden of time, test of valor anyways, just because they hated having basically -1 tradition slot. Now it has a penalty. And I feel like a lot of players just are going to skip this. But we're going to have to see. We're going to have to see. Refinements to syncretism. Before we dive into changes, a quick heads up. We have some deeper changes planned for syncretism. We're not quite ready for the workshop. This is very promising. So it sounded like they did very, very minor changes to syncretism. Personally, I had a lot of thoughts about syncretism, and I gave them a lot of ideas to play with. So I like hearing that, hey, we've only adjusted this much, but there's bigger things we're planning on. That sounds like a big rework. I think syncretism and narrative events go hand in hand perfectly together, but we're going to have to see what they do with it. In round 1, it was tucked away as a mastery on your civ's first unique civic node. This is something that I personally said is a terrible thing to do. We thought this would feel like a natural progression. You finish your foundation and immediately get to pick your syncretic bonus. However, your feedback in Discord suggested that this made the choice feel a bit too trivial and automatic. It wasn't holding the narrative weight that it should as a pivotal moment in your empire. So what I literally said was like, I mastered my foundation and got something that wasn't even me. I was mastering my Incan civilization and got Mississippian units. I mastered my American foundation and I got Greek units. It felt very, very counterintuitive. It didn't feel narratively like what they were trying to go. And if the problem is immersion, you need to fix it narratively. If someone is being pulled out of the narrative of the game, you have to give them a narrative reason as to why something is happening. It can't just because balance. You have to give them a reason. So in round 2, they moved syncretism onto its own dedicated node in the civic tree and significantly increased the cost. So this is quite literally, they changed nothing mechanically. They just changed the presentation. That fixes my issue in terms of mastering the foundation. Narratively, I think that's a good change. The civic tree specifically, increasing the cost of it makes it more of an investment. Very, very basic increase to investment. We'll see if that actually changes too much. This is the question. Is it more earned now? But I know, yeah, okay. So like this is what we are seeing basically. We actually didn't have this UI. This is a new UI. But essentially, if you're playing Greece in the modern era, when you complete this civic, you get your choice of either a unique unit, a unique infrastructure, or unique units of another civ. These civs are tied to what that civ is tied to. So Greece is tied to Prussia. Greece is tied to Russia. I think they said it was by what was unlocked. So theoretically, your what ifs would also come in. So if you settle by a bunch of mountains and you unlock terrace farms from the Inca, or if you unlock the ability to play as Inca, you should theoretically have the ability to syncratically pick up terrace farms in almost any games. Again, I don't like the idea that you're picking from the same civs that you just chose not to play. I thought that was redundant, but that's okay. And you have to pick one. It's either unit or it's infrastructure. This seems new to me. I don't remember seeing 2 unique units. Oh, right. But these are the only civs those are the only few civs that have 2 unique units. Most civs have a unique military unit and a unique civilian unit. We did not have access to civilian units through syncretism. So, like you can't get the Roman legatus, or like if you pick syncretic options of Mongolia, you can pick up Keshigs, but you can't get their unique unit or their unique general, and you can't get Ordu. So it's either you're full Mongolia or you're partially Mongolia. But again, I didn't really like the idea I like the idea of the civ blending, but I already like civ switching. So I think players that don't like civ switching were gonna like syncretism, how it was presented. This might fix a little bit of it, but here's the idea. Will Prussia's units carry the Greek Empire through the modern age? So it's like, all right, so you're gonna sink some extra culture into your non-apex unique civic tree and unlock the ability to get a unit from that time period. I think that's interesting. I like my narrative event version specifically. I'll probably make a whole video on it. That's probably gonna be after this round though. We're gonna be live streaming playing this specifically. Round 2, the Firaxis Feature Workshop is live streamable. And again, if you want to play it, I can invite you. So you can participate. It is not open to public. It is not going to be posted. It's not going to be published. It's not going to update Civ 7 for quite some time. But before the end of the summer, for sure. It sounded like. Expanded roster and updated modifiers. So there's going to be several civs that we can play during this beta. Last round, you only had the choice of like 3 civs per age. Just because they wanted to keep it very, very specific, they didn't have to adjust all 40-some civs for a beta test, right? They gave us Rome, they gave us Egypt, they gave us Assyria. They also gave us Inca, Abbasids, and I guess Majapahit. And we had America, France, and probably Prussia, but I forget. Now we have access to more civs. So you can see we can play as Carthage now for all 3 ages. 1 city challenge through all 3 ages. So this is what I'm talking about. There are so many civs that there's civ bonus. The civ bonus is what creates their asymmetric playstyle. Carthage, that is 1 city. Inca, it's working mountains. Let me see. Oh, France is reworked too. And I think the more civs, like the reason you would want to play 1 civ through all 3 ages is because of their unique playstyle that they provide. There are specific civs, like I mentioned, Tonga. Tonga's unique civ bonus is not unique at all. It is the +1 influence on city halls and the palace if you're settled coastally. That's not why Tonga is fun. Tonga is fun because of the unique scout. The unique scout can traverse ocean tiles and the unique infrastructure locks in that ability for Exploration Age. However, because it's disconnected from the Civ bonus, why would you ever play Tonga? Why would you, what if you could just play Hawaii and then pick up Tonga's unique scout? Or why would you go from Tonga and then not transition into Hawaii? Because if you have Tonga and the only thing you're changing is that now you lose the influence on your city halls, but now you get culture on every marine tile, and you keep the fun ability to keep the scout, as opposed to, oh, what if I switch to Hawaii, but now I lose the access to have my scout going through the ocean? Like the unique play style of Tonga is their scout. There's a lot of times where the unique play style of a Civ is not tied to the Civ ability, but it's tied to random passives or traditions. And the reason you want traditions to have those unique abilities is because in a game where you are constantly switching Civs, you wanted those very unique traditions to be playable in the next age as a tradition. So you end up having, trying to transition. So when you play as Rome and you keep the tradition that gives you, what is it? Oh, shoot. Sorry, I didn't get much sleep. I'm blanking on different things. If you keep traditions that define the play style of a Civ, why would you not transition and keep that play style versus stay that Civ and that play style? Like it makes it so that they're trying to overbuff Civs that are out of the Apex because their abilities, their play style isn't tied to like their Civ bonus, which is the ageless effect. If it becomes, if you don't switch Civs, it's sorry that I know that didn't quite come out quite clear. The way I wrote it was actually pretty nice. So we're free to play any Civ with any leader, yada yada yada. Expanded roster. Oh, here. So we're rethinking how civilizations gain modifiers during the campaign. Those incremental bonuses, the +1 culture, like all the passive bonuses you're hitting whenever you get a random, like Rome randomly gets free bulwark promotion on commanders, or they get free combat strength, or you get oh man, I should really just have like Civ open, huh? There's a bunch of random passive abilities that happened. They decided, maybe from some of my feedback, or just the point fatigue of not being able to track where all these random bonuses are coming from. They don't always change how you actually play or force tactical decisions, though. To address this, we're shifting some of the power into Civ's unique abilities. So all of these passive bonuses that we've been talking about, maybe even like the passive bonus, like the Tofias that allows their scout to navigate in ocean tiles. That's a passive bonus. Or it either is getting moved into the unique ability of that Civ or into actual traditions. So I think probably the best example was Inca, where you had random passives where your mountains would just get powerful from researching your exploration area unique civics. Those are now traditions. So you can continue to play that, because if you play Inca into modern era now, all of a sudden you lost all your passive bonuses because those don't transition. If they're a tradition, they transition, or if they're your unique Civ bonus, they'll transition. So having a lot of those like free passives need to go somewhere other than just being free passives. And that reduces the modifier. So again, all this stuff we're going to play tomorrow, and we're going to see how it actually looks. Also, if you guys have questions, let me know. Trying to capture a Civ's identity in a single unique ability across all ages is tricky business, so please give us feedback. So this is specifically what I was talking about, where the unique ability across all ages has to be part of the Civ's identity. This is, of course, very tricky with different civs. Abbasid, like they tweaked Abbasids, like we talked about before. Their ability gives you gold on every growth event, not just specialists, which was good. But things like Inca working every mountain tile. Majapahit is going to be trade and naval stuff. Mongolia's unique ability was that you always got military points for conquering on your homelands. That's actually being tweaked because now legacy paths are gone. So yeah, I don't know. Spain's actually a good example where their old ability was just converting cities was less expensive. Their new ability was getting food and production and stuff on coastal cities. That's very easy to now move and transit and make that scale per age. That's very, very easy to implement, whilst other civs might be more difficult. Also, they're changing how tall and wide works. Again, there's actually a lot of reasons why they're doing this. Tall players have spoken during your playtesting. You told us that for expansionist civs, the default time-tested civic trees sometimes force a playstyle that didn't feel natural. Oh, they're talking about a specific expansionist unique civic, which probably would only make sense if you played. We'll see what that means exactly tomorrow when we live stream this. But basically, the tall empires still felt like they were being pushed to have a handful of high powerful cities, but still sprawl a ton in terms of settlements, towns. They're trying to adjust tall versus wide to not only just be how many cities do you have, but you still have to fill out your settlement limit. Now they're trying to adjust it so like tall versus wide means how many cities, but also how many towns. So and there's a lot of points in the attribute tree that I pointed out in the past where it's like it didn't make sense when like for instance the scientific attributes where one end was you get science on towns and the other end is you got science on specialists and you got more science if you had less cities. Well, guess what? More like 3 or less cities means you're playing tall because you have less cities. But more towns meant you're playing wide, but it also meant you're playing tall because you still have a ton of towns when you're playing tall. But you're playing tall if you have a lot of. But actually, when you go wide, you start converting towns into cities, so now you have less towns. So is this like one was definitely like having specialist science was definitely for the tall game, but then the wide game, you got science on towns, but you have more towns when you're playing tall, and you have more cities when you're playing wide. But it was a big disconnect where it's like they were both for tall gameplay, as opposed to one being tall, one being wide. I think they're trying to fix that. There's also, so to fix this, we specialized version of the expansion unlocks that better reflect each civ's natural style. So tall civs, these are the expansionist civs. Again, we're gonna have to look at what the actual, some of the things in terms of patch notes aren't quite here. We're actually at the launch of the game and see what it looks like tomorrow. Opposites, Inca, Majapahit, Buganda, they have a tall path specific, unique expansionist pathway, and then America, Mughals, Qing, and Mongolia will have wide paths. Because these are all expansionist civs. They'll have an expansionist attribute. They'll have an expansionist unique civic on their non-apex unique civic tree. Yeah, we'll see what this looks like. All right. I'm gonna move past that. I think I'm starting to lose myself. Maybe you. The victories is the big redesign too. Your original design for Civ 7 victories were deeply integrated with the legacy paths. However, we heard consistent feedback from players that structured felt railroady, forcing you into a narrow set of objectives that didn't always align to your actual empire strengths or unique situation on the map. This is actually a really big deal that they're adjusting victories, legacy paths. The being forced to always feel like you had to go settle distant lands in exploration age, or you always had to do you had to interact with religion every single game because you wanted to get all 12 legacy path points. And that was the only way to get any points from the cultural tree. That's a big deal that they're acknowledging that, and they're going to change it. They also made the endgame feel like a race towards a predetermined checklist rather than a culmination of your empire's unique story. So like culture being, oh, you need to get all 15 artifacts. And once you do that, you can build the capstone project of the World's Fair. It's like, all right, what if I want to win a culture victory that isn't related to artifacts, though? What if I hate artifacts, but I want to do culture victory? The new victory condition addresses that specifically. It also makes it, because every single victory condition was a capstone project, it basically meant that every single victory condition felt like science victory. It felt like a space race by the end of the game. The changing that is actually a really big deal. And I think this is good. So the system rework victories, military, cultural, economic victories. We've introduced a point-based model for dominance, victory by dominance. To achieve victory, you must receive a specific point threshold over your second place player and maintain the lead for a countdown. Oh, I had thoughts about the countdown. This threshold actually decreases as the game goes on, making it possible to win early if you're really far ahead. And then, of course, it will declare a winner by the end of the game. But the scientific victory, it remains the space race. So what they're talking about here is military, cultural, and economic. There is basically, you need to have more points than everyone else. Military was based off of how many settlements you had. It was the simplest one, where if you had, like right here, you can see Hatshepsut has 13 settlements. Charlemagne only has 4. She's quite leading in this. The threshold, basically this point goal would show you the threshold that you had to hit. The threshold was determined by the age, and that was a whole thing. But basically, military, you won by having a lot more cities than everyone else. Culture, you won by having a lot more tourism than everyone else. Tourism, though, is very specifically, this is different from Civ 6 tourism or Civ 5 tourism. It's the same, but it's different. And the easiest way to explain this is that in Civ 5, you had tourism as your offensive number, and you had culture as your defensive number. Once your tourism eclipsed everyone's culture, you won the game. In Civ 6, it was basically that, but it was actually tourism versus tourism. It was foreign tourism versus domestic tourism. Domestic tourism was still generated by culture, but basically your culture would generate domestic tourists, which were then stolen by foreign tourism. And then it was still tourism versus tourism, but it was a weird, confusing mix mash instead of being like bar in Civ 5. Now in Civ 6, your tourism is generated by anything that's cool, unique wonders, unique improvements, great works. That includes your relics and your artifacts, but those actually get locked in at the end of the age. They essentially become ageless. You don't keep the yields on for instance, your codices, but you do keep the, or your codices go to science. You don't keep your yields from your relics, but you do keep your tourism. And basically, your tourism has to be X higher than everyone else's tourism. It's tourism versus tourism. It's a little more simple. But basically, the way you defend culture victory is you got to play a little bit of the culture victory. Same thing with all these other things. Economic is by having the most amount of gold per turn. Gold per turn isn't your actual gold per turn. I think this was confusing. Gold per turn is just basically a point system that is generated by how many resources you have slotted, how many treasure fleets have you done, how much factor resources do you have slotted in. It's another point-based system. And essentially what ends up happening is that you need to have X amount of points higher than everyone else. At the end of Modern Era, you only need to have 1.25 times more than anyone else. It's a very small threshold. But if you're only at 50% of Modern, you need to have like 2 times. Or the beginning of Modern, you need to have 3 times more than anyone else. If you have 3 times the tourism as anyone else, you start winning. You can actually win sooner. You can win in Exploration Age, but at 50% of the Exploration Age, you have to have like 5 times more than people. Which basically means if you've snowballed that hard, it's basically like a mercy rule. And like the first turn of exploration, you have to have 9 times the score of anyone. It's obvious you're winning if you have 9 times as many settlements as anyone else in a military condition, but it does require you to... It basically, there's a mercy rule where it's the earlier in the game, the higher the threshold is required. That also allows people to catch back. And then you had to hold the victory for X amount of turns. Before it was 10, I thought that was awful. It basically meant that you hit the cultural threshold, and then you had to hold it for 10 turns. So it basically means your decisions didn't matter for 10 turns anymore. There was one instance when I was playing that it did matter, because someone declared war on me and then actually built their tourism high enough, and then I stopped winning. And then I had to go and punch them down, and then I started winning again. So I think there's something to be said about that. They're making it only a 5-turn countdown now. But basically, military victory. This used to be just how many cities you controlled. They're expanding it. Now, each settlement's worth 4 victory points at a starting point. Each antiquity original capital is worth an additional 4 points, so you get more points by conquering old capitals. Distant land settlements are worth an additional victory point, so you're still incentivized to conquer distant lands, but only by a small portion. And each settlement captured from an ideological opponent in Modern is worth 2 additional victory points. So before it was just conquer cities, but there was no point value in terms of, do you conquer a town, do you conquer a city, do you conquer a capital? So it was basically, it felt like actually where military victory is in the base game already, where it's like you just capture like 10 tiny towns and you can win. They're trying to make it so it's more beneficial to go for bigger capitals and stuff like that. Also the ideology point to help you win faster in terms of Modern. Culture victory, you get, of course, tourism from everything that I mentioned before. They're adding a couple other additional tourism now, though. So resort towns in Modern Era earn tourism for the breathtaking tiles. So the appeal stuff is coming. Tourism is coming from appeal. Hell yeah, brother. Like, that's hell yeah, dude. Resort towns give you happiness based off of appeal. It now gives you tourism too. This is quite literally gonna be kind of what my preserves are, is resort towns for a little bit. You get, they're also increasing how available relic slots will be. So religious site town focus now adds more relic slots. Architectural mastery adds relic slots, pavilions. They're basically allowing you to more easily get slots for your relics. Wonders with Great Work slots retain them in subsequent ages. Oh shoot, Wonders from Great Work slots retain them in subsequent ages. So does that mean the Great Library that has Codex slots and Nalanda, they'll have slots for relics and exploration? And Wonders with relic slots, they'll have museum slots? I didn't even notice that before. That's crazy. Do you have to maintain obsolete buildings for their Great Work slots, libraries, temples? Very good question. No idea. Obsolete buildings, I would say they lose their adjacencies. They lose their quarters. They're not considered quarters anymore. I would assume they lose their Great Work slots. I think having Wonders retaining Great Work slots specifically means that things like libraries will not, which is good, because that would be crazy for, like, if all your libraries and temples had Great Work slots for your artifacts, that would be kind of ridiculous. But I don't know. Town focuses let you build pavilions in more places, which now have more relic slots of researching the architecture mastery. So this is all I saw. There's going to be more ways for towns to be useful. So right now, towns can literally only build warehouse buildings, but then they can also build some buildings. They can build temples for basic happiness. They can build altars for your pantheon. But now it sounds like they can also build pavilions because relic slots. You can build temples because of relic slots, but now it sounds like you can also buy pavilions for relic slots. That was actually a big reason why Augustus was so good, was because he could buy relic slots in towns where other leaders can't. That's actually kind of a big nerf to Augustus specifically. I'll have to see what that means. I don't know, like, you can build pavilions in towns. Does that mean you can build museums in towns? That kind of defeats the purpose of urban centers now. That's interesting. That's a whole thing I'm going to have to look into tomorrow. Address an issue where the AI was not properly pursuing culture victory. Okay, cool. So science is the one that actually operates differently. Science is still a capstone project. You have to attain 100 points. And you attain points by doing things. One is by generating codices. The other is by, there are scientific capstone projects in each age now. So in antiquity, instead of there just being the capstone project, the space satellite in modern, there's now capstone products in antiquity and in exploration, which I thought was freaking amazing. There is a chart the stars project in antiquity, as well as another one. I'm trying to remember what it was specifically. Oh, but it was tied to, or chart the stars was under celestial navigation, and the other one was tied under mathematics. Oh yeah, it was discover calculus. Like basically your scientific project of creating things, and they were capstones, but they also gave you a bonus. So, like, the celestial navigation one, I think it gave you more movement on ships. Don't quote me on that. But they gave you science points. You also get science points by building specific wonders now. So, Nalanda will give you specific points. Great Library, House of Wisdom, Oxford University will give you science points to do the science victory faster in modern. You do still have to win by doing the capstone project. There is also, in exploration, the capstone project, I believe, was... Oh, no. Circumnavigation was in, but it was a triumph. Hey, Trash, how's it going? Oh, dang, dude, I'm gonna have to... See, this is... I was hoping there was gonna be more... There's only so much I can explain in terms of these patch notes specifically, but there's also gonna be more ways to get scientific victory points in the civic tree, or the tech tree specifically. And then future tech gives you scientific victory points. So the more times you hit future tech, the more quickly you'll be able to win science victory in modern, which I think is a good thing. You still win science victory by having a spaceport and being able to launch an Earth satellite. I think there was a bug in it though. I actually won science victory without a space project at all. That was because there's additional repeatable projects. Like there is a project that was unlocked at laboratories, which was basically space preparation. And you got to do that repeatedly until you had 100 points, and then the 10-turn counter started. There's another one. They're actually moving that later to radio telescope. It's at radio stations now. There's also another technology they're adding in the modern era. I saw somewhere. And then there is the idea is that you want these repeatable projects in case you didn't make enough points throughout the whole game. If you didn't do any of the projects until the very end. But it's going to be slower if you had missed those. They still want to have a final capstone project. And I think science always has to be a capstone project in terms of like declaring the game over if it's still very close throughout all three ages. So science is the exception to the victory by dominance. It's still a point-based, as in you accrue points by doing scientific things throughout the game. And the sooner you get to 100 points, the sooner you can launch the Earth satellite, which is a good thing. I think they need to change the final countdown, but that's okay. And then economic. You got economic points by doing treasure fleets, by having resources slotted, by having active trade routes, by slotting in factory resources. It just added to your whole economic score. There was no Great Banker. It looks like they're actually now bringing the Great Banker back. This is actually a really big deal. I think something that I miss personally from the workshop is that we're not limited to only the one legacy path, but legacy paths are still a way to win. Like Culture Victory, you build wonders the entire game. not just antiquity, because every wonder you build contributes to your score, which means you continue to win. So even when you would have, after you built 7 wonders in antiquity, you still want to keep building wonders. You want to build unique improvements. You want to do anything you can to continue to increase your score at the end of the age. You're constantly building towards the end of the game, and that is something that is good and something that was missing in the previous Civ. But bringing back the capstone projects, like I think World's Fair still has a place in a culture victory. It just would be, give me like 50 culture points for doing the World's Fair. But I still need to hit that threshold. So it sounds like they're doing that for the Great Banker. Great Banker is actually a triumph now. Cost goal to activate in players' capitals to earn economic victory points. Cool. I think that's great. I think you should do the exact same thing, but bring the World's Fair back for culture victory. And then I think military is still just conquering cities, and I think that's good. Resource import from trade routes, not an economic point. When slotted in a city, but not in towns. This is a very specific thing. Oh, and there's a commerce screen. Okay, so triumphs is something that they're also adding. If you're new to the workshop, triumphs are your replacement of legacy paths. Basically, triumphs are, if you could imagine, instead of having 1 legacy path, you have 3 or 4 for every victory condition. That's what triumphs are. They are basically a mix match of objectives, where, for instance, for culture, it's not just build wonders in antiquity. You can build wonders, but you could also build altars, which is basically your precursor to religion. But you could also get... Oh, shoot. What was the other culture one? I should have that one. Hang on. Nope. Hang on. Here. Oh, this is Exploration Age. Relics, Wonders. Oh, and that one's already claimed. Basically, what it ends up doing is that it kind of makes it so that there's more of a through line through all 3 ages. So, like, for instance, for Culture Victory, you could build altars in Antiquity, you can build temples in Exploration. And to be honest, they hadn't filled out the full list for the last patch. So there's a bunch of them in Antiquity, but then there was only a couple in Exploration. There's barely any in Modern when we play tested it. So I'm excited to see what it's looking like now. So hang on, where was I? So the biggest pieces of community feedback we received was Legacy Path felt too prescriptive, like the game was steering you down a single correct route. Now there's multiple routes. Specifically, one I really enjoyed was the military path. There was one triumph for conquering cities in distant lands, which is exactly what the Legacy Path is. But there was another one that was for conquering cities in homelands. So now, any civ, not just Mongolia, any civ could be rewarded for going after distant land cities or for homeland cities, which means like it was your choice of what you want to conquer. And it allowed you a lot more of a sandbox feel in order of you got to pick which triumphs you wanted to go after, which I think was a good thing. Instead of dictating your strategy, triumphs offer a wide range of optional challenges tied to 6 core attributes in Civ 7. So that includes the diplomatic and expansionist as well. Some will trigger naturally through strong play, like hitting population milestones, while other will ask you to pursue a riskier, more off-the-beaten-path goal. There's minor triumphs and major triumphs. Minor triumphs give you an immediate bonus. They're small milestones, essentially, while your triumphs are basically your legacy paths. Your major triumphs, that is build 7 wonders in Antiquity, that is get all 10 codices, but also it's research every tech mastery. It's they have them? Oh, this is the same screenshot. Yeah, so like abundance, you can see like, assign 36 resources, but also get, treasure fleet points. So you can see that you could do resources and treasure fleets in exploration. I know there is a assigned amount of resources in Antiquity, but then you also had points for establishing X amount of trade routes. So there's multiple ways to get to a legacy path that gave you a bonus. Now, the bonus is something that was supposed to be something that's powerful in the next age, akin to your dedications, right? So from Exploration Age, if you displayed all 12 relics, you got to keep your founder belief into Modern. That is what the Golden Age was for Modern Era Culture Victory, but there's also other things where you can get Culture and Production on Wonders. Or you can get a Great Work slot on City Halls in the Palace if there's a temple and a settlement when a dedication is selected. And interesting. But basically, you only had 3 points to spend. And if you had done all 3 culture triumphs, say you're playing a really strong culture victory, you can pick all 3 of the culture major triumphs. But if you weren't really direct, if you didn't beeline one victory condition, you probably were only gonna hit one culture triumph. But then you have one economic triumph. And then you can do more of a one economic, one culture, one scientific, it was your decision to either beeline one victory condition or be more variety and versatile. But you're always limited to only 3. So that's the biggest piece of it. That was the most important part. You could only have 3 points to spend, which meant you didn't feel like you had to do all 12 legacy paths, get all 12 points so you could spend all 12 points. Otherwise, you weren't playing good enough. Which I think is the biggest problem with the legacy point system in Civ right now. Is now you actually have to pick and you have to beeline. It looked like they're actually making it so you could either have these set so that everyone can accomplish all of them, or you can set them so that they all race, and you have to be the first one to achieve them. I think that's actually really good to make them, you quite literally, you have to beeline them by racing, but I think that's different. They've added a bunch of new triumphs. So I know a lot of other content creators were kind of complaining about triumphs on the last round of the workshop. I feel like the biggest problem was just that there wasn't enough of them. Some of their bonuses were weak, yes. But especially when you move it into Modern Era, there was basically none of them available. So it sounds like they actually fleshed out the roster of all the triumphs. And I think that's a really good thing. But there's a lot of versatility in it because, for instance, if you want to play a culture victory, but you're a great work leader, not a wonder leader, your game's gonna look very different. If you're playing as Catherine or if you're playing as Hatshepsut, you're gonna have very different culture games. So why would you want to only play one cultural legacy path? This gives you much more versatility, right? You could have Hatshepsut in the Exploration Age focusing on building wonders, while someone like Catherine would be focusing on building relics. Now, if you're going culture victory, you might try to go for all 3 of them. A lot of these, there was 4 though. There's 4 economic triumphs, which meant it wasn't the same 3 every single economic game. It was a mix and match. I'm gonna pick 3 out of the 4 and go for them. And I think that was actually really, really fun. I had a lot of ideas about how to do victory conditions differently. I think this is pretty good because it's pretty open-ended. There's gonna be different sets too. There's the default triumph set listed with 30 triumphs per age, and that means you can all do them. There's also the race set, which means it's the same set, but you can only one person can claim each. So you have to be the first to 12 relics or the first to 7 wonders, and I think that's a really big deal. And I think I don't like that they're making these so separate. I really like having. I think I think optional game modes is good, but the more you have different setups, it gets very confusing when players or content creators try to talk to each other about the game. But there's specifically a Conquer Triumph set, which is all basically all militaristic triumphs. I don't know why you don't just put these all together into one set and make them all races, but I'll have to look at them. And then there's a classic set where there's only 4 triumphs. That's the core 4 legacy paths. So legacy paths are still in the game. They're just different. As opposed to having only 4, now there's a lot more. a lot more, like 10 to 12 or more per age. And so you could still play Civ exactly the same way we've been playing, but you could also play it very differently. So you could still go build all the wonders and then settle the distant lands and then go for artifacts. Like you could do all those things, but now you're rewarded for doing other things as well. So like conquering the homelands in exploration, or building wonders in exploration and modern, or doing what's science, codices and tech masteries and all that kind of stuff. Also, the point is you have a unified victory condition. It's not just like have 15 artifacts by the end of modern. It is have tourism from all 3 ages, cumulative more than everybody else. So every single turn, your actions still matter. It's not like, oh, I finished my legacy path, nothing matters anymore, which I think is a big deal. So there's also, here's where we're starting to see some of the UI adjustments. This is actually a very big deal. So we have a commerce screen. This is the new trade screen. There's a bunch of things that they're adding here. Loudest request coming from players was better clarity around trade and resources. The commerce screen is a place to manage resources, trade routes, empire logistics, and treasure fleets, by the way, without bouncing between menus. The commerce screen now gives you clearer previews, added yield data preview. Basically, I'll show you what this means specifically just by scrolling down to it. But here's what their commerce screen looks like. I think, so there is a resource tab, which is going to have, now you have a separation between your connected resources and your disconnected resources. So now there's less confusion about why can't I slot this item in? Oh, it's not connected to any of my talents. There's no roads. So now I need to build a road to get this, or make a intermediate settlement so that this disconnected resource becomes connected, and then I can assign it. There's icons for city resources versus bonus resources. I think I'm going to be critical about this. It says work in progress. I understand that. But this feels like there's now less room. There's like less room for your resources now, which is kind of absurd. I like that we see yields here. There's filters. Filters are good. But I think this is still going to need some work. Your trade screen also shows you your trade routes and also your available trade routes. This is actually a really big deal. You can see what resources are being delivered per leader, the relationship modifier that adds, as well as the goal that that leader gets from the trade route, including the trade routes to you and the goal that you are making via trade routes from the AI. That's something that you can't look up anywhere right now, that I know about. You can see like how to get access to other resources via other trade routes. I think a big problem with this menu still is that there's so many scroll bars. Like all of these icons are so big that I feel like the information is not really easily accessible. But that's something separate. There's also an Empire tab. This is your Empire resources. So instead of being with your city and your town resources, your Empire resources are now separate. They are now listed out with quantities. There are effects as opposed to hovering. I think this screen has the same problem. This is actually now bigger, and you have to scroll down. Probably better on console. So I guess you have to give him a pass for that. It's probably easier for console players. That's one of the reasons why the UI for Civ is complained so much about from PC players, is because it has to be designed for both console and PC. I don't know how I feel about this one, to be honest. And then your treasure, you also have a treasure tab, which they did not show. But you have a dedicated viewer for treasure convoys available during the exploration age. Each settlement will display associated treasure resources, number of active treasure convoys, how much each is worth, how close each settlement is to generating a new treasure convoy, requirements for generating treasure convoys, and explanation as to what you need to do to correct any unmet requirements. I think that's all useful information. That's good to know. I think that's really good. So UI adjustments are coming. I think there's definitely more information available. I think this is in the right direction. I think my biggest problem with it is that it's still so reliant on scroll bars and things being really big. They did mention, oh, where did I see that? It's not available yet. They are currently working on drag and drop though. So you'll be able to drag and drop resources from one place to the next as opposed to click here, click there. Which if anyone has played Civ 6, you know, like drag and dropping cards, it feels way better. I wish they would also just make it so that you could customize which menu you had between like if you had the option to have a console specific UI or a PC specific UI. I think it's time. I think you just got to make specific UIs for each. Like I feel like the resource tab. This just feel more like Civ 6 policy slots, drag and drop cards than how it is currently. Same thing with the policy cards in Civ 7. And then they have a bunch of balance adjustments coming. So this is actually a really big part. This is something I'm actually making a dedicated video on because this is something that is not announced pretty much anywhere yet. But it's actually a big adjustment that's coming to all of Civ 7. And it's not reliant on continuous civs. It's not reliant on the legacy pass. There's a lot of things that are changing a lot in there. But these balance adjustments, I think, are just going to be here to stay. In the last update, the appeal, you'll see the happiness system changed in appeal in 1.3.2. Was your first glance at a revisit to happiness. That's where we now have the appeal lens. And you, instead of getting one happiness per age on any charming or higher tile, now you get one happiness flat on charming tiles and any age. But you do get +2 on breathtaking tiles. So there's a little bit of a give and take there, but their goal here is to make happiness a lot more scarce. They have found that it's too easy to have a crazy abundance of happiness in the late game, especially for wide empires that just have way too many cities. Happiness is supposed to be the mechanic that curtails wide playstyles, and instead they were finding that if your town, every rural tile was breathtaking and every tile had 4 or 3 or 4, especially when they added resort towns, 3 or 4 happiness per tile, it was too easy to get happiness and to just completely avoid the problem. So they're making happiness harder to get. They're also making happiness way more impactful. So the impact of local happiness, remember this is the local happiness of a settlement, has increased to -5% negative yield per point of unhappiness. This is a big deal. Before it was -2%. So if you had -5 happiness, it was -10% yield. So if every city in your empire was a little bit unhappy, you had a minor penalty. However, more cities at minor penalty, it felt like Civ 6. Too much to them, I guess, where it's like, all right, if you have 30 cities with negative amenities, that's still better. It's still better than having 10 cities at positive amenities. So they're trying to make happiness way more impactful, and but to a limit, to a -80% yields and unhappy settlements. So if you are very, very unhappy, you're going to feel it. Your yields are going to sag a lot. So as opposed to, I found a lot of times when you're playing the game and you have, you go over your settlement limit and all your settlements are unhappy, it's not a problem. Until the crisis happens and the revolts come and then you're like, oh crap. So, negative happiness does not apply to a someone's food. That's fine. Is that new? No. Is it? I don't know. So nice strategy. It's nice that strategy games now are released for both PC and console, and each version has a parity with each other, but the UI can definitely end up with the worst of both worlds. Yeah, so it is good to have console players look at a PC content creator and see the same menu and feel like they're playing the same game. That is important. However, we're all modding the heck out of the UI, so it's different anyways. So it's like, all right, cool, well, to like fix the PC issues. So I don't know, it's tricky. But anyways, happiness, unhappiness, way more impactful than it used to be. That means managing your happiness is going to be very, very important. Your happiness is going to be harder to come by. And there's also going to be other changes that make happiness a lot harder. And here they are. Settlement limit. The negative happiness applied to each settlement for exceeding the settlement limit is now uncapped. Remember, previously you could have a maximum of negative 35 unhappiness for going 7 settlements over your settlement cap. Settlement cap has always been a soft limit. It's about, hey, this is how much your empire can actually maintain. The bigger your empire gets, the harder it is to keep everyone happy, not revolting, and satisfied. However, when Civ released, they decided to make it cap out, where if you had over 7 settlements over your max, like you didn't continue to get even more and more and more negative as you like conquered the world, right? Because they wanted that playstyle to still be available. However, a lot of content creators, I'm looking at Paisley and Ursa Ryan, have pointed out how much that the negative 35 is easy to work around. And you get to a point where it's like, all right, cool. All I need is 35 happiness. So let me grab a bunch of silver and some temples and some dyes in all those towns, and we're good. So this is now making it that this is now uncapped. The bigger your empire gets, the harder it is going to be to keep your settlements happy and at high yield. Now, the settlement limit is uncapped. The negative unhappiness is uncapped, but the negative yields is capped. So if you conquer the entire world and everyone's unhappy, you're still getting 20% yield per settlement. So it's still viable to do a lot of conquering. However, you might have to pick and choose a little bit more carefully about which fights you take and which cities you take compared to previously. I still conquered everything. I never raised a single city. I think they need to change how raising works if they're going to make this adjustment. I think it needs to be less of a crazy penalty. Like, kill my diplomatic favor, but don't like give me negative happiness on top of it and a bunch of other things. Anyways, so settlement limit uncapped. Local unhappiness, negative 80% yields to unhappy settlements. And here's a big one. Specialist changes. This is probably the biggest one, and why I'm making like a separate video that I'm trying to release tomorrow. Specialists no longer have a base yield. Previously, it was 2 science and 2 culture. So every time you place a specialist and you get random culture and science, you don't get that anymore. Instead, you now get 100% of a tile's adjacency yields as additional yield instead of 50%. This is a very big deal. There's been a very, very long time that players have been saying that their specialists don't feel special. They put down a specialist, they get a little bit of adjacency, but they also get science and culture, and basically, but you also cost food and basically every time you placed a specialist, it would affect every single yield on your empire. Where it's like, all right, it affects food, it affects happiness, it affects science, it affects culture, and obviously, if you're on like a coastal tile, it's going to affect your gold per turn and your food or whatever. And they didn't feel special. Now, the idea of specialists was that the contrast was supposed to be about compared to your rural and your urbanized tiles. So you have your rural improvements, which are going to be generating you basic yields like food production and that. And then you have your urban tiles, and your urban tiles will be generating your specialized yields. So at the cost of your food and happiness, your workforce, your rural tiles need to support the population in your urban tiles, right? Your urban specializations, but those specialists will then give you more advancements to your science and culture, right? So it was about urban versus rural. However, it was trying to do both. It was trying to be urban versus rural, and it was trying to be the adjacency modifier to make a tile feel special. But then every time you put down a specialist, you got every single yield, so they didn't feel special. So they're getting rid of the base science and culture, and instead you're getting 100% adjacency on the tile instead of 50%. That means if it is antiquity and you unlock currency and you build your market and you have a +4 market, you put down a specialist, 100% adjacency is now +8. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. But now your market doesn't randomly have science and culture on it too. But now when you go into exploration, this is going to get crazy. Specialists are going to become so specific and completely redefine the entire game. Because you can get access to like 5 specialist limit in Exploration Age. That's 500% adjacency. So if you have a +4, that's now a +20. That's crazy. But that's the thing though. If you have a science tile, right? Let's say you have a tile that you have your observatory and your academy on. And let's just say it's an average science tile, like +3, right? Well, now that observatory is +3 with 500%. So now it is +15. Cool. And then your other science building is also +15. So now you have a +30 adjacency tile when you're trying to get to 40 yield. And that's not even including the base yield. But the biggest part of it is that now, instead of that tile having science, culture, gold, like all of the yields, it's just going to be the one yield. So if you have 2 science buildings, it's going to be one giant blue icon. If you have 2 gold buildings on a culture tile, it's going to be one giant gold icon. If you have happiness and culture buildings next to some mountains, it's going to be, a big culture and a big happiness icon. And which is going to not only make it way, way less cluttered when you're looking at the UI, it's actually going to make city planning way more important. Because now you're going to look at your tiles and where you settle, and you're going to settle for high adjacencies because you know how big adjacencies are going to matter. But not only are you settling for high adjacencies, now you have to decide which adjacencies are you going to go for. In every game of Civ that I've played, pretty much everyone ends up with basically the same amount of science and culture at every single game. Because a lot of that science and culture comes from attribute trees, it comes from your specialists, it comes from a bunch of different places. But basically, if you had a coastal civ, if you had a mountain civ, you had a resource civ, you all had basically around the same amount of science and culture. Now, you're going to see a huge variation in the yield banner of your civs, because you're going to have coastal civs have a huge goal per turn. You're going to see resource heavy civs have a huge amount of science per turn. You're going to see, civs nestled a bunch of by the mountains and natural wonders have a huge culture number. There's going to be a much bigger variation in civs and the yields that they have. And you also have to decide which building and which specialists are the most important. Because remember, we have production scaling has been introduced. You can't build everything. But also is the other part of this. Specialist maintenance costs now increases by age. It's now 2 or 4 or 6 food and happiness per specialist. So do you want to place 5 specialists on 3 different tiles? Because now, like 5 specialists, that's negative 5 times. That's like negative 30 happiness. Can you afford to put that? Think about the exploration age. At the very end of exploration age, when you have 5 specialists and you transition to modern and your buildings go obsolete, so you lose your adjacency modifiers on those buildings, but you keep the maintenance cost of the buildings and the specialists. Like modern era is gonna hit like a truck. It already hits like a truck. Imagine if you had all of those specialists, and like you can't have 15 specialists in a city because there's gonna be so much happiness maintenance. You're just gonna be at 20% yield as soon as you start the era. It's gonna make the rubber banding really, really hit. It also means ageless yields, now even more important. Your palace that gets adjacency for quarters nearby it, maintaining your capital or moving it to another city that's going to have quarters where you have 5, 6, or preferably 6 quarters. If you have 6 quarters around your capital, that's plus 6 adjacency on your palace. That's plus 6 science and culture. But then you put 5 specialists on it. Now you have a plus 30 science and culture building that is ageless, that won't lose its adjacency on the area transition if you plan them properly. Also, unique infrastructure, like your Ulum or your Necropolis or any civ that has unique building infrastructure is going to have a buff from this because you can put specialists on them and they're ageless, which is a big deal because you're going to keep those ageless yields and your adjacencies through the era transition. Big deal. It's going to make happiness management much more difficult. But you're going to have to pick and choose. Do I want rural tiles? Do I want specialists? Instead of putting a specialist down and you just always get science, culture, and whatever on it, now it's like, all right, you only get 1 yield and there's increased maintenance. And now you got to worry about the happiness implications in general. It's a really big deal. I think this is a great time to put it in. Rip warehouse cities. Yeah, we're gonna have to figure out. Then you got to figure out how much of your city, how many rural buildings do you have, warehouse buildings do you have for rural tiles, and how much is going to be urbanized. How much of that is offloaded to other towns to provide food? How much do you have to preserve the few high appeal rural tiles in a city because there's happiness on those tiles, right? Your breathtaking tile, you're not going to urbanize because you're going to want to keep that rural. So there's a lot to be said there. All town focuses have been, so now we're jumping into completely different adjustments, right? All town focuses have been updated across all ages. Scaling by age has been removed from town passives. So I'm assuming that's the specialization. So you don't get 1 food per age on farms anymore, or 1 production per mine per age. Almost all towns now have the ability to purchase a subset of buildings when a town focus is chosen and are no longer limited to tier 1 buildings. What? I have no idea what that means. Almost all towns have the ability to purchase a subset of buildings. So once you focus the town, you can get more buildings, like your monument and your library, but you're also not limited to tier 1 buildings. I wonder if that means all towns become urban towns. Essentially, we can get tier 1 buildings, but urban towns specifically can get tier 2 and tier 3. I don't know if that's what that means. I need to play the game to see. I have no idea what it means. Map updates. So this is going to change. This is going to change a lot about how you make towns. Dude, there's so much right here in this little bit here. Happiness is going to be harder to find. It's going to hurt a lot more. Your settlement cap limit is now uncapped. Your specialists are going to be way stronger, but cost a lot more maintenance. Your towns are going to get you a lot less food, gold, or whatever. But can be slightly more urbanized, so maybe they'll feel a little better. It sounds like they're trying to blend towns and cities a little bit, but make the distinction based off what the player decides to do, as opposed to mechanical limitations. I'm not sure, though. Map updates. In addition to some tweaks to actual map generation, we've revisited the value of rural tiles across all ages. Yield is now differentiated across biomes and no longer scales by ages automatically. That is also a big deal. So if you know, like jungle tile gives you science and antiquity, but when you move to exploration, it gives you science and food or science and production. So desert gives you gold, but then in exploration, it gives you like production and gold. Like there's a little bit of scaling that happens just on the baseline. But now it looks like this is being completely removed. Now increasing the value of rural tiles with warehouses and other bonuses is an active decision. So now you're not just going to have random rural tile, like settlements, rural towns that are going to have like a ton of gold, right? Because you're just going to get production on all of these tiles for free, and you're going to have warehouse buildings. No, it's you have to scale it yourself. So if you have let's say a grassland tile, which is 1 food, and you put a farm on it, now you can get 2 food. Then you can put down a granary to get 3 food. Exploration, you can get a grist mill to get, now, what did I say, 4 food? And then modern era, you can get the, what is it? Not the cannery, the grocer. So you get 5 food on that tile. But all that scaling has to be from actual investment. That's really, I think that's good. There's a problem in the game where there was just an overabundance of gold and so many things. To the point where, like, in Civ 6, you always had, like, if a tile had it either had 1 production or it had 2 gold per turn. But now in Civ 7, it's like they only have 1 gold on like a desert tile, which is not equivalent to 1 production at all. But they felt like they couldn't change that because there was just too much gold in the game. So it sounds like this is actually their solution to reducing the amount of free yield that you're just getting from just having towns, even without warehouse buildings. So all of it sounds like you have to do a lot more personal investment to get your towns off the ground, which I think is a good thing. So trade outpost towns can get the market and bank, but no other town specs can. Ooh, that might be interesting. Matthew, I like that thought. Like except, oh, then how would you do the other things though? Like, can a farming town get a garden? And what would a mining town get? Oh, I guess they could get the production building. Barracks? Maybe resort town, tier 2 happiness buildings, trade outpost, 2-tier gold buildings. I like that idea. I have no idea what the actual what they actually landed on. There's a lot of things in here that are actually very like a lot of miscellaneous changes. Like, we're gonna have to find out tomorrow. Tech and civics. The cost of tech and civics have been adjusted. Additionally, almost all passive yield increases on the tech tree have been removed. Yeah, they're trying to heavily curtail how much random power-ups there are, as well as the amount of crazy yields you get. So this means the +1 food on all food buildings, the +1 science on all science buildings, the +1 gold on all gold buildings. I think that's a good idea in terms of having it like a conceptually having the mastery. Like, I unlock gold buildings, but I want to master my gold buildings, so I have better gold buildings than everyone. I'm guessing they're just finding that it's too much. It's why you can't go into modern era, or at least I can't go into modern era completely ahead of the AI. Some have been replaced with other bonuses, and the tech tree has been reorganized to accommodate. Also, a new node in Modern, computation, has been added to better balance late game tech progression in Modern. Yeah, late game tech goes really fast in Modern because there's not a lot of text there. I think adding more text is good. Computation in Modern era. Interesting. Cool. So there's going to be less. So text and civics are going to be more expensive. I think this is always good. I think as satisfying it is to play a game of Civ and be able to do everything. It feels satisfying the very first couple times you do it, but you get to the point where every game feels exactly the same and gets very repetitive. This is why we're changing Legacy Pass. This is why we're making things more, technologies and stuff more expensive. This is why we're trying to curtail the crazy scaling when it comes to like city states and also I guess the yields on every single tile. This is why I like playing on abbreviated ages all the time, is because, hey, I can't do all 4 legacy paths easily. And it made it so I had a beeline towards the actual victory condition that I wanted to go for. And I thought that was a lot of fun. Basically, I made it harder. I gave myself less time to do everything. So I couldn't do everything. And I think what they're trying to do is design the game in a way. Oh, they also shortened ages. I think ages actually go by faster now. Or at least they were faster than the last workshop did. Because they felt really long. Because they changed how age progression works with triumphs. Anyways, it sounds like they're trying to make it where things take more. There's more of an opportunity cost where you have to actively decide, what buildings am I building, because I can't build them all? Where am I putting my specialists, because I can't place them everywhere? What yields am I specializing in? Which triumphs do I want to go for, because I can't and won't benefit from doing all of them? And which victory condition do I want to beeline, because I can continue to apply to that victory condition in all 3 ages? It feels like they're really trying to push that game that direction. Where there's more trade-offs, more opportunity cost, but more agency for the player to make decisions. That sounds like a good thing. We made a lot of small tweaks to other areas of the game. We're hoping you dive into the game and check out what has changed in the latest version. To help guide you on some of the things we've evolved in subtle ways, check out City States Susan bonuses. Sweet, they changed City States Susan bonuses. This is a good thing. Oh god, they probably just tweaked values. I really want City States to have their own unique bonuses and not just select from a list, but I doubt that's what's here. Wonder cost. Oh, they probably made wonders more expensive too, so you can't build all the wonders. Wonder yields. Ooh, they probably buffed wonders because wonders are very, very weak. New building adjacencies. Oh, yo, wait, they changed the adjacencies on buildings too. Cost progression on unique improvements. Ah, yes. They added cost scaling to unique improvements. So you can't spam Hawilt in every single tile for the entire game. The problem with unique districts versus unique improvements was that unique improvements were so dang cheap. Actually, they weren't all the same. Like Hawilts are like 60 gold, but the Great Wall is like 150. It sounds like the more Hawilt you build, the more expensive they get, which I think is a good thing. Hawilts are crazy. Map generation. We've also made a handful of updates to map generation. Navigable rivers, where we've made some changes to how navigable rivers are spawned. In short, we've lengthened the navigable section of longer rivers while removing really short navigable rivers to keep the total number of rivers roughly equal. So more long rivers, less short navigable rivers. Shadow Seas map has better access to distant lands. Updated the way distant lands are generated in this map, giving the player better access to distant lands. That's a good thing. Shadow Seas had a very hard time getting to distant lands. And erosion. Erosion can now erode multiple tiles deep into a landmass, and is controlled by rules like avoiding plate boundaries, harder rock, and eroding more where westerly trade runes below large waves into coastline. So, okay. This leads to subtle improvements in the shape of land masses. So it looks like they're, additional rules to make continents feel more natural. But specifically looking at trade winds, increasing erosion. That's so cool, dude. Other changes are AI DLC leaders now do a better job of selecting their associated civs based on game settings. AI is weighted against picking civs used in previous ages, so they like them switching civs. Improved AI's ability to pursue all victory types. To be specific though, AI generally mirrors your behavior though. So if you pick a leader like Benjamin Franklin and you lead America, the other civs will try to do the same. So Pachacuti will lead Inca instead of the Mississippis. They try to, I think that's the default setting. You can change it, but the default setting is they try to mirror the player, which I think is a good thing. Advisor stuff. Ooh, expanded advisor content for Antiquity, Exploration, and Modern. There's a Take Me There button to jump straight to a relevant event. That's really cool. Transitions. Oh, this is a big one. Age transition. Added a new Civ selection screen to better present the options of staying as your Civ versus swapping. That is something that we did see. That's this guy, where you can see all the Civ select here. But Civ selection now happens at the end of the current age, letting you review your empire before committing. You no longer go to the random lobby where you get pulled out of the game to pick your Civ. Now you are still in the age. You get to look at the map, decide, hey, do I have enough rivers to play as Songhai? Let me look. Hey, do I actually have enough mountains to play as Inca? Let me go look. And now all traditions persist between ages. This sounds like a duh. But it's not. Traditions do always exist between ages, but what they're trying to highlight here, my assumption, is that the passive bonuses, all the passive power-ups that you get from unlocking random stuff in your civic tree, your unique civic tree, is now either a tradition that will persist the age or is tied to the Civ unique bonus. So I think that's good. But yeah, Civ selection now happens at the end of the current age. You know what also that means? With continuous Civs now existing in the game, you have the ability to look up what America's abilities are in antiquity, right? Because like this is something that's been frustrating, being especially a Civ creator, is that when you play a game of antiquity and you're trying to figure out, hey, what are the Abbasid's abilities? You can't look up Abbasids in the wiki, in the in-game wiki. There's actually a really good but really dumb reason why that is. That's because they are not even loaded into the game at all. This is an optimization feature where in the first era, it only loads the civs from the civs in that era. This is performance optimization. That means when you're playing late game, it literally unloaded all of the previous civs. So when you're playing modern and it's very CPU intensive, it had unloaded all the information about Rome, about legions, about the legatus, but it kept things like information about the Roman Forum because that is ageless. That needs to continue on. That was an early optimization feature, which I'm assuming is less necessary the further we get into the game's life cycle and optimization. But the most annoying thing is that it also unloaded in the wiki because it was unloaded entirely. So, but now if you have America available in antiquity, well, now you can go to the wiki and look up America. Oh gosh, that's so silly. Cool. I wonder what that's going to do to optimization in the game. I wonder if Modern Era is going to get a lot heavier for certain players, certain lower end performance PCs, including mine, because I still have a RAM issue. But But being able to pick your civ while you're still in the game is actually going to be a huge part of immersion, because every single time that you have to go back to a menu to pick your civs is really annoying. It breaks immersion. It does naturally break up the game cycle, so you can take a step away and go get some water or do something else other than civ for a little bit, which is good. Games like Anno literally try to remind you to go get a cup of coffee or something. But for a lot of players, they never return to it. So having at least that first decision made while you're still in the game, you picked your civ, and then you can transition the age and go move right to the next age. Then you have the decision if you want to keep playing or not. I think that's going to help age transition a lot. I think it's going to help age transition a lot. I think this is actually a way bigger deal than I thought. And then we have some information about creating game, for game text legibility. Oh, I think it's the menu is so hard to read sometimes. I literally saw that on Reddit. There's also quality of life adjustments, added auto pan to combat, nested tooltips have the option to automatically lock. Treasure convoys now validate their path on their last move. No more resetting your entire fleet's destination when one ship arrives. Empire resource type icon changed from red to orange to reduce confusion with error signals. That's fine. That seems nice. And then we have a bunch of information about who we can play for next time. So again, tomorrow we are going to be playing our first game of the Firaxis Feature Workshop Round 2. These are the civilizations that we have available to us to play. The other civs are not ready yet. Again, this is a beta. We get access to play this. This is great. Last time we only had 3 per era. Now we have 6. Let me know who you would want to see. Do you want me to see... Because when I first played, I played as Inca. Because I thought that was awesome. To start in Antiquity as Inca, move into Exploration, and then move into Modern. See what it feels like pre-Apex and post-Apex. We could also play as Carthage and see what a one city challenge feels like the entire game. You could also play as Rome and then become, you know, we could be always Rome. You could be always America, but we also have, so I played America, I played Egypt, I played Rome, I played Inca. I also played a little bit of the opposite. We also have other civs. We got Greece, we got Spain, we got France, we got, oh, France is reworked too. Mughal. Interesting enough, we have Han and we have Qing, but we don't have Ming. So, which is actually interesting. You could play Han into Qing. I think there's a lot of different options we could decide. I think we'll figure that out probably tomorrow. I'll try to do something that represents Civ well if I'm live streaming it. Probably an Exploration era Civ. Maybe a Spain. We'll see. Multiplayer is possible but not recommended yet. It was completely disabled for round 1, so that's fine. DLC ownership in the base game is respected. If you do want to be part of the workshop, you do have to have the game on Steam because unlocking it requires the base game. It doesn't require DLCs, but DLCs are only active if you have DLCs. So it's basically, it's literally like a separate thing in a game in Steam, but it uses all the information from the original game as well as your DLC stuff. There's also, of course, places give gaming feedback, bug reporting, surveys, as well as a bunch of known issues. This is all a bunch of stuff we're going to go through here tomorrow. And I think it's going to be a great time. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. I have a little bit of a video that I'm still working on when it comes to getting this fleshed out. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments. I'll try to answer them as I can. And yeah, I think it's been a good 2-hour stream. Just patch notes again. I kind of can't play it yet. It starts tomorrow, so we'll see. We're gonna see what it looks like. I think I'm gonna end the stream here though, guys. Unless you guys see anyone that is streaming, let me check to see if. Oh, hang on. Let me before I dock something. I saw Ursa was gonna do a stream. I don't know if that happened or not. We kind of got last minute information about all this stuff, so I'm sure Paisley Trees will have a stream eventually. It doesn't look like she's on right now. And yep, I don't see anyone else online, but I hope they let you see all the traditions and Civ passive when you're selecting a Civ. So 2 things about that. Here, let me just launch Civ right now. because I think that is actually really, really good to highlight. Yeah, this is what I mean. Like workshop is like separate. The passives, or they're trying to redesign passives so that they're either part of the Civ's main ability or a tradition. So they're trying to get rid of passive modifiers as much as they can. And the traditions are, you can see them already. So let me just like pick anyone. This is part of the 1.3 or 1.3.2 update. Let me go to a Civ. Let me grab, for instance, Rome here. And you can see Rome's ability, right? This is Rome's main Civ ability. You have, of course, your Legion. So your unique military unit, your unique civilian unit, your unique infrastructure. And then... Oh, shoot. Hello? Oh, I thought, hang on. I gotta make sure I don't have any mods on. Just so that doesn't mess with anything. Oh, I think it just didn't load. Oh, that's hilarious. I could have swore. Huh. I could have swore it was right here. Let me just launch a game and see if it's... What the heck? I literally just read this last night. Like, obviously it's here. You can see traditions here. Hey, yours, thanks for the sub, by the way. We just hit 5,500, which is great. I'm happy about that. I could have swore I saw... Am I thinking about somewhere else? So if we go here, if I click... Okay, we can see the traditions here. Ideally, there's going to be more traditions now. So this is what I'm talking about, right? Like, I can't go and look up Abbasid right now because they don't exist in the game because they're not even loaded. Or America. But I can look up Rome because Rome exists, right? Ooh, this should be definitely labeled here. I don't know. I'm gonna have to wait. That's something I'm gonna keep an eye out tomorrow when it comes to the workshop. So thanks for pointing that out, Matthew. I'll definitely keep an eye out for that, and I will try to point it out where I can. Oh yeah, but yeah. So like these are things, right, where we see the appeal. We have got breathtaking tiles. These have 2 happiness. These are the rural tiles we're gonna want to preserve, right? You're gonna want to try to keep these around. Of course, there's no bonus for having urban tiles and happiness, but oh boy, dude, a wine start? This is actually not a bad spawn here. You got mountains. But anyways. Yeah, let me know if you guys have any thoughts. Again, join the Discord if you want to be part of the Firaxis Feature Workshop. DM or just message me on the Civ 7 chat, and I'll try to get you a Steam code. But anyways, I think in general, things look overwhelmingly positive in terms of this workshop. I think a lot of the changes that are coming are in the right direction. There's a little bit of providing too many options, as in like there's a lot of like optional game settings at start, which yeah, that's what players want. As a content creator, it drives me crazy because like we have to argue between regroup and continuity and all these different things, but more options is always better, right? And the direct communication with Firaxis has been freaking fantastic. This is certainly new to them to do a workshop at this size, this openly with this many people, but also directly with content creators, reading and listening to feedback. I think it's freaking amazing. So anyways, I'm going to end the stream here, guys, and I'm going to try to finish up a video for tomorrow about specifically those last big 5 changes that we were looking at. And I think talking through a bunch of this with you guys has actually helped me out quite a bit on that, because I was kind of spinning my wheels earlier. So thanks for being here. I'm going to catch you all guys later. And again, if you're on Twitch, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube. And if you're on Twitch, Or if you're on YouTube, go to Twitch. There. Also, links in the description. And a live stream tomorrow. I will let you know. The stream will be at, I believe, noon. So if you want to see all of these adjustments, noon Eastern Standard Time. That's when we're going to go live. Again, I'll post in the Discord about it too. So, all right, guys. See ya. Bye.